today's video, we're going to continue talking about another part of cognitive behavioral therapy for insomnia and how I actually use some of these principles in my sleep coaching work as well, helping clients to finally figure out how to overcome their long-term insomnia and sleep problems. Now, a word of warning at the very beginning is really going to look at practicalities. I'm not going to have the opportunity to tell you the extensive list of how I apply this and these kind of cognitive behavioral therapy techniques in every single scenario. When I work with a client, often I would look at what are some of the things that are presenting in their situation, how complex their insomnia or sleep problems are, and then obviously pick whatever is relevant for them. But for the purpose of today's video, I'm going to give you a couple of different examples so that you can practically understand how I relate it to a client and how it might work in your situation as well. But like I said, it is going to be a simplified version. Now, when it comes to this next part of cognitive behavioral therapy, it addresses a couple of different things. So it's thought distraction, thought control, and what we call paradoxical intention. Now, all of these different things are presenting in different ways for different people. Not everybody needs to deal with it. Not everybody needs to actually spend time on improving this part of their entire journey. So again, it's just another part of the treatment plan or an option within the treatment plan. But as a word of warning, just like I mentioned in the previous videos, when it comes to cognitive behavioral therapy and really structuring the treatment plan, it's not about picking one thing or two things and ignoring the rest. Even when I work with clients, we actually really go through all the things that they need in order to improve. And it's never going to be just one thing magically working overnight or quickly. What's important, especially if you really had long-term insomnia and sleep problems, is that you either work with someone who can help you really design that practical treatment plan, or you really look at appropriately addressing each step of the way. It's never going to be just one part of cognitive behavioral therapy. It's often all those different things working together to actually building that picture and building that support system so that you can really get to your end result. So now that we've covered that, and before we go into the content, as always, welcome back if you're part of my community already. If you're new, then I'll quickly introduce myself. So my name is Beatrix Schmidt. I'm a sleep coach, a professional speaker, and the creator of Sleep Skills for Life program. And within the program that I work with, we really look at putting in place whatever the client needs in order to make sure that they can really develop those long-term sleep skills that will help them to sleep consistently well for many years to come. This should never be a guessing game, and sleep is not as scientific as most people sort of learn. It's way more practical. And so if you've been looking at educating yourself on sleep and insomnia and sleep problems, but have not actually been able to transfer the knowledge into creating results, then some things are missing. Most of the time there's going to be a gap, and it might not be that you found all the relevant things that will help you. So again, that's a really good practical way to look at it. And one more thing to ask you is to subscribe if you haven't yet. Hit that little bell so I can let you know when I post new videos, and use that like button as well at the end if you have actually enjoyed the content of the video. It really helps me to really understand what are some of the things that you are interested in. So now that we've gone through that, let's really start talking about these different parts of sort of cognitive behavioral therapy and how I apply them in my practice working with clients. Thought control is often one of those things that I talk about with my clients because different articles present it this way, and articles sometimes actually really work on this idea of control that often is not very helpful. So thought control is often presented in a way that you have to be able to control how your mind is bringing up different things. From its nature of the word, control means that it can never be something different. But the reality of who we are as a human being is that thoughts, both negative and positive thoughts, are part of who we are. Yes, we're able to influence them, but controlling them is not necessarily a good way to actually achieve that positive outcome. And what I've seen with my clients is that when they really desperately trying to control their thoughts, often what they end up doing is pushing them away rather than actually really properly dealing with them. And if you just push them away, they tend to actually come back later on. And you would have seen this if maybe you push them away in the evening and maybe you're not able to fall asleep in the evening, and then those thoughts tend to come back in, or they come back in if you wake up later on. So this is that difference. So if you're just controlling them without really proactively dealing with what happens, why you're thinking that way, or what might have been the sequence of events that triggered that thought pattern, that means that it's not necessarily just going to go away. It might just go away for a short period of time, but often it then tends to come back. So when you think about this idea of thought control, I would really invite you to think about it in a way that you want to learn how to allow the thoughts, whether they're positive or negative thoughts or thought patterns, to move away. It doesn't mean they will disappear completely. So as one of my examples, as I mentioned in previous videos, I'm an analytical type person. So my thought patterns are often very much about looking at what happened and how I can improve it, or how I can plan for the future, that something maybe have occurred and I don't want that to repeat again. So my thought patterns are naturally that way because that's how I am as a person. Controlling them would assume that I never ever allow them to unfold that way. So I would stop them before they actually fall into a certain bracket of maybe problem solving. But what I find is that when I used to, and this was many, many years ago, when I applied this idea of controlling, it often meant that I made it even more negative. Like I would resist that part of myself that was working that way. But the reality is that it can serve me in different ways. I just needed to learn not to let it get out of hand and stop me, in this case, stop me being able to sleep well. So I hope that explains the difference between thought control and really learning to work with who you are and work with your own thought patterns. And what you really want to achieve is to be able to create a separation from daytime to the nighttime. So when you are going to bed, those patterns don't rise up again later on. So that is that really clear mental separation. So all of the thought patterns, all of the controlling things that might run away with you are not repeating in the middle of the night. In the second part of this video, we're going to be talking about this idea of thought distraction. What I've seen in my practice is a lot of the times people learn to distract themselves when they have either thoughts that they don't like, or the thoughts come up at times when they don't want them to come up. So again, this is where either maybe during the day or even in bed, you start having thoughts that seem either quite negative or can be quite positive. So again, both can cause issues falling asleep as one example. Or you really just don't want to experience those thoughts at all. So this is where you want to stop the thoughts being there and you distract yourself doing something. And this can be various different things. I've seen it in my practice. A lot of different things can come in to distract the thoughts that you're not really enjoying having, or you don't want to have them at that particular time. Now, what I've seen with that is, as a principle, it's a really good way to train the mind to not run away with thoughts. But often what happens is if you're only distracting yourself from thoughts, let's say late in the night or in the middle of the night, but you have not actually built up the practice to really let those thoughts go and truly deal with them, the only thing that happens is the thoughts stop for the period of that distraction. And as soon as you stop doing whatever else you might be doing, the thoughts simply just restart again. And again, this is a very common experience and only one version of that experience that I see with clients. So again, there's versions of this as well. So when you want to really apply this idea of calming your mind down, distraction is often not very successful because simply it will just restart when you stop doing other things. Instead, what I normally work with my clients on is to really deal with whatever's entertaining your mind, whether that's positive or negative things. So again, if you have a certain thought pattern or if you have a tendency to have certain types of thoughts, then we want to actually really become aware of them and deal with them in an effective way before you climb into bed. So once you climb into bed, your body and your mind knows that it's not supposed to be thinking about all these things, but it's actually supposed to be focusing on transitioning into sleep, relaxing, and obviously resting. So when it comes to this, I would really advise you to practice calming your mind down during the day. There's various tools for it. I tend to use different tools for different types of situations because thought patterns can be positive, thought patterns can be negative, thought patterns can be sort of go alongside emotions as well. So sometimes they become complex. There's lots of different versions. So what we want to make sure that whatever you're putting in place to help you calm your mind down and calm your thoughts down actually is effective, which means they don't rise up again when you stop doing whatever you're doing. Now we move on to the third part, which is what's called paradoxical intention. Now, I work with this again in different ways with my practice and with my clients. The bottom line or simple way to describe paradoxical intention is that you would want to deal with any fears or concerns ahead of time. So a lot of the times when somebody has had long-term insomnia or sleep problems, there's a lot of these sort of fears, concerns, worries that unfold either in the evening or in the middle of the night as well. And again, it can be various different versions of that. So when you want to really help the body and the mind to be able to really rest, relax and sleep in the nighttime, and fear is stopping that, or certain heightened emotions are stopping that, then we really need to look at how do we deal with that. Now, in my practice, again, there's lots of different things that come up, and often it would depend on the complexity of the problem, the sleep problem, the insomnia, how long it's been there, what are some of those things that people have tried and maybe not succeeded in. So it becomes quite complex. But the way I approach this is, first of all, really understanding that whilst negative experiences do happen, so not sleeping well, but there are positive experiences too. And almost every single client, no matter how complex or severe their sleep problems were, there was always some positive things that were current at the beginning of our time working together. So the way I approach this part is to really help the person understand that whilst they are not in a great place at that moment in time, but there are positive signs within their situation. So this really helps us to be a bit more proactive about the fears, actually really talk about their concerns, worries, fears, really understand what is it that is causing these fears or worries or concerns, to be proactive about them, to really often really even talk about them in a way that we prepare for them. So if you feel a certain way or if this emotion rises up, what are you going to actually be doing in order to decrease that? So again, the paradoxical intention part is really going to depend on the person. Not everybody is experiencing those kind of things that needs to be dealt with. not everybody has the level of intensity that means that we do have to deal with that part. Sometimes what happens is, as you go through the treatment plan, and maybe you haven't even sort of got to this stage, if the appropriate things are put in place, a lot of the times what happens is all those things that I put in place with my clients already starting to help with these parts as well. The thoughts, the feelings, the emotions, and sort of those thought patterns as well. So not everybody has to specifically work on that part, but sometimes it is an additional part of the treatment that we have to put in place. So now that we talked about these 3 different parts, I wanted to find out maybe which one you relate to most. We all have certain tendencies. I definitely had mine when I struggled with my insomnia. A lot of them are much more what I would call tamed, so they no longer cause me sleep problems at all. It doesn't mean they have completely gone away, but it does mean that I actually know how to proactively deal with who I am, what my thought patterns are, what some of those sort of feelings that I go through, and so on in an everyday life. So this part of cognitive behavioral therapy is very much about going deeper into who you are as a human being and working with whatever else needs to be put in place in order to help you to make sure that your sleep is going to be good, consistently good quality for many years to come. So thank you so much for watching this video. If you haven't yet, then hit that subscribe button below, hit that little bell as well so I can let you know when I post new videos. And this is the time to hit that like button below as well if you have enjoyed today's video. Once again, thank you so much, and I'm looking forward to seeing you in the next video.